Endless wars and conflicts continue under the Biden regime. Well, instead of building back better, we're dealing with a bridge collapse that will have a ripple effect on our already crumbling economic infrastructure. But the biggest war we actually should get involved in and in the fight is the war on our children. Talking about all that and much more. But for this premiere show and in the shows to come, we hope to leave you with solutions and hope. It's Thursday, March 28th, and this is Get Free with Kristi Leigh. 3, 2. We were endowed by our Lord Jesus Christ. Get free from propaganda, get free from censorship, get free with Kristi Leigh. We are very excited to welcome Landon Starbuck to the show today. Her husband, Robbie, was recently on Tucker about their documentary, War on Children. And here's what he had to say about the sexualization of children. Watch this.
Do you see this accelerating or decelerating? Where are we on the trajectory, do you think?
We're in normalization, normalizing this as a reality, and this is really the breaking point. It's the decision point of whether this will accelerate or whether we can pull this back and save the next generation. But the truth is, if we don't, you hear politicians, my whole life I've heard politicians say, this is the most important election in history, and it's always bullshit. But in this case, it genuinely is true. This is the breaking point. You don't save the next generation right now. They will become the future voters and the future leaders of tomorrow, and they will be fully indoctrinated into this cult. This is a cult. This ideology will break this country and everything our founders and ancestors built. Okay, and that's not just this country. That's goodness. That's virtues. It's about humanity. What is inside of us? What are we willing to do to tell the difference between right and wrong and to stand and really stand for something as a human being? Because we're lacking that. Our soul is tattered right now, not just as a country, but as the human race. That's why I said this is an almost planetary scale operation. And you see it all over the West. You see it in the permissiveness of immigration. You see it in the permissiveness of sexualizing our kids. You see it in looking the other way as kids are trafficked all across the world for the most disgusting means. You see it online, letting big tech run roughshed over everything, as millions and millions of images of children being raped are traded on their platforms, and politicians sit by, do nothing, do worse than nothing. They take the money of the big tech companies and then they do a fake hearing where they do a sassy hit on Fox. They send that out to their fundraising list and they get reelected to do the same thing. At some point, the insanity has to end.
Something interesting you said right there is, knowing the difference between right and wrong. We're obviously in a society that has embraced relativism, and there is no such thing as right and wrong. It's all relative, right? There's no such thing as truth. But obviously, you know that there's truth. There's absolute truth. Shout out to Emerald and her show here on the same network. And this is one of the biggest, most consequential stories. And constantly we have all these other things shadowing it, things like P. Diddy and the like. And as a mom, obviously, I have 3 teens and an infant, so it's a topic I care deeply about, this war on children. And being that this is the first show here on Free Speech, perhaps you're seeing me for the first time, and you do need to know more about me. So I'd like to introduce myself and my hopes for the show. Here's a quick clip that essentially explains how I went from a legacy media news anchor to a media malfeasance whistleblower. Watch this. After nearly 20-year news career, about 13 in TV news and about half that as a main evening news anchor in Ohio and then California, I now find myself a corporate-controlled media fugitive.
Kristi Leigh, the state of Ohio's #1 anchor.
The news sent down from national started becoming unrecognizable to how I was taught journalism was supposed to be, and it only got worse.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
I observed some former colleagues and even some new ones cheering on the selective censorship of voices rather than be a voice for the voiceless.
A pandemic of the unvaccinated.
This is an epidemic that's occurring in the unvaccinated.
We're seeing a pandemic among the unvaccinated.
This is becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
As a news anchor introducing national stories that lacked journalistic integrity, I felt complicit in the division and confusion we were all feeling. I had to break the chains of corporate-controlled media and embrace what freedom I could find through going independent.
I'm here to tell you that what you're getting from the news is propaganda, which is why I left mainstream news and have become an independent journalist.
I think there's merit to what you're saying, Kristi. And you were one of the ones early on that warned me about how wicked the media can be because you experienced it yourself.
Now my hope is to empower audiences to spot propaganda, know what real journalism is supposed to be so that when you see the fake stuff, you'll be able to spot it and know it, that you're being gaslit. I'm challenging you to not listen to the propaganda, to listen to a news professional that is telling you that what you're not getting is the truth. Dig a little deeper and find out what makes sense.
I hope to balance the one-sided news narrative, hold those in power accountable, be a voice for the voiceless, and keep asking questions.
So there you go. Some of what I'm hoping to do in this space, some things that I'm hoping to do on this show and continue to do. This has been a wild ride for almost 3 years now that I left legacy media. And I've learned a lot along the way, even things that, I didn't like to see on what I thought was the safe side. So this is an exciting new beginning to do what I think is right when it comes to delivering information and also making sure that we're doing it with hope and solutions, like I said at the top of the show. People often ask me, what are some of the stories that stuck out to you in your long career in journalism? And I gotta say, it's those stories that involved tragedy. And I'm a deeply empathetic person. And so it really, it sticks out to me when I had to witness like the worst forms of tragedy. Early on in my career, I think I was carrying the camera and doing all of the things because I had just started in the business, and I was in the courtroom when a mother had to witness her daughter's killer being sentenced, and his total attitude and lack of care. I think it was just too much for her, and she lashed out at him in court. And of course, in Toledo, Ohio, not the highest market out there, this was great TV local news footage of this scene in the courtroom. And so obviously, our competitors there in the courtroom at the time, they wanted to rush this mother and get the exclusive interview with this mom in her deepest heartache, one of her deepest heartache moments. And I just remember them approaching her, and she was waving them off, and she was very upset. And I was just kind of watching from a distance, and I just felt so sad for her. And my eyes started to tear up. And, again, I was off in the distance, and I just caught eyes with her. And I just said, "I'm so sorry," just kind of mouthed that. She came over to me. I asked her if I could give her a hug. And, I said, "I have to ask this, if you want to talk about it, if you have anything to say, I'm here to get your statement." And she's like, "You know what? I think I do want to talk about it." And so here I was, this green reporter, and the only one to get the exclusive interview with this mother in desperation. And it's because I thankfully knew, as a believer, to lead with compassion, to be authentic. And I was able to not just get the story, that was the secondary part, but I was able to connect with another human being and offer them compassion, like I said. Now, those are the stories that stick out to me. There was another tragic case where a father accidentally ran over his child. And, we've heard this across the news nationally, when these terrible, clearly accidents, the most heartbreaking thing that you could ever have happen. And the mother and father were grieving. I don't even know how that dynamic would work, but comforting each other. And, again, it was a situation where I could offer a hug and ask to pray with them. And I'm so grateful that God put me in those positions to where I could be that person. Now, this leading with compassion was cemented when I unwittingly had to report on my own brother's tragic accident. Now, that was 5 years ago. It seems like yesterday, but it was 5 years ago this month that I had on my brother's own tragic accident. It was breaking news, top of the 10 o'clock news at that time. I was reporting it was a duopoly, if you will, the Fox affiliate and the ABC affiliate. Breaking news at the top of the 10, and it was about a tragic accident, first day of a one-lane closure on our major thoroughfare, I-75. And it was kind of, this is what I did every night. I reported on accidents. I reported on all of these important things and these tragic events, and it was kind of becoming habitual. And so my phone started blowing up, and then I found out through the course of the night that I had reported live on my own brother's tragic end. It was, and it made me view what this space is about, what being a reporter is about in a different light. These are real human beings. These are real families. In this case, it was my own family that was forever changed because of what was just the news at the top of the hour. I don't have the clip of me reporting on that, but I do have the clip of me thanking the community. And this is why, even though I'm so adamant about taking to a news analysis when it comes to network and media, I am extremely defensive of local news. I think that's the last bastion of hope that we have, because these are people that are in their community. They often live in the community. And for me, this was an amazing show of support to someone when they found out that it was the news anchor's brother. And so here's just a clip of me saying thank you to the community.
I want to take a moment to thank my work family here at WTOL and WUPW, and each and every one of you for the kindness and compassion you've shown me and my family during the great loss of my brother in a car accident I reported just a week ago to the day. My siblings and I grew up here. This community is our memories. It is our family, and we've all lost a great, kind man. I don't want you to know him as Kristi Leigh's brother. I have been lucky to be Matt Foreman's little sister, and we will be reunited someday in heaven. I know many of you have suffered great losses like this as well, and now I grieve with you.
And it's another big year because this is the year that I'm going to be older than my big bro. He lived to the age of 41. This year, in a couple months, I turned 42. And so this is an even weirder year for me, that I'm now going to be older than my big brother. But again, all this to say that, local news does serve a point. Being there to deliver information, it does serve a point, as long as we're leading with compassion and as long as we still always see the humanity behind the stories. And I'm thankful that even through tragedy, I was able to get that cemented into me. So my hopes for this show, called it Get Free because of a sermon that I heard of, actually. The sermon was talking about, forget fighting for freedom. We need to walk in freedom. And it was just so profound. It was so simple, but yes, we are already free. If you know the truth, you're a believer. And hopefully if you don't, you'll come to that realization. We are free because God has set us free. We were born free. He endowed us with rights. It was him that we have the liberty that we enjoy. And so we do need to kind of get away from this defensive and we need to fight for our freedom. We need to own our freedom. We are already free. And so the show is about owning our freedom. Get free and get free from all of this mess that's going on behind the scenes, the propaganda, the medical tyranny, and just own who you are, because we're already free. I hope to offer news analysis because of my many years, I can see and break down for you how the news is lying to you, the warning signs, so that you can hopefully reach out to others and explain it to them. I hope to bring to you, obviously, what the mainstream is missing, which is a lot. And I hope to be a voice for the voiceless, which is a true tenet of journalism. It's been the most rewarding part of leaving legacy media, is being able to truly embody that tenet. Some of my most memorable interviews in this space are not the big names that many of the shows that you see have on, but actually those names that none of us had known before, the ones that were getting censored on Facebook, the ones that were getting shut down for being able to share their tragedy if they got harmed by the jab or they lost someone, a hospital killed their loved one. These are the voices that were being shut down by legacy media. And it's been an honor to be part of a movement that elevated their voices, that allowed them to share their story, their tragedy, and their warnings because of it. And I want to keep this all in perspective. Obviously, spirituality is important to me. I do believe that what we're facing is a spiritual battle. I hope to integrate the Word of God into the news so that we can look at things from a biblical perspective and recognize that we are in a spiritual battle, because our only hope of winning this war, and there is many battles at play, we're going to be talking about the war on children, is if we're connected to God and doing it through His discernment and His will. And more than that, I hope to integrate something that I think is also missing from this space. Good news. Laughter. We cannot constantly be wringing our hands and upset. And yes, there's plenty to be sad about. There's plenty to be enraged about, but we need to break it up with things that can bring us joy. There are still things to be grateful for. And I think we need to remind each other of that. We need to laugh with one another. I actually need your help with this because it is hard to find some of those good news stories. Send me your favorite funny or heartwarming stories, your video clips that can make me and others smile. Send me your favorite Bible verses, something that you feel especially grateful for. You can do this anonymously, or we'll give you a shout out on the show. I want you to be a part of this show. I want you to be an editor, if you will. This is the editorial board. Just you can send those to klgetgoodnews@gmail. That's klgetgoodnews@gmail. All right, so now we're going to come to the part of the show that I will cut to the chase in future shows, which is the news for the day. So at the top of a lot of news, both network news, mainstream news, if you will, and even in this conservative media space, we're hearing a lot about this crisis at the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore. This is crazy, even especially to me, because when I first found out about it, my husband had just woke up. He wakes up earlier than me and goes off to work, and he's like, oh my gosh, the Baltimore Bridge, it collapsed. Now, my husband grew up in Baltimore, so countless times he has traveled on this bridge, and so it was especially personal to him to be like, oh my goodness, mass casualty event, what's going on? Now, here's what we know. A 95,000-ton cargo ship plowed into Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge, causing it to collapse. This 50-year-old structure, nearly 50-year-old structure. Since the Mayday call had gone out, the bridge was mostly cleared, but construction workers fell victim. 6 out of 8 of them died in this collapse. There are so many angles to this and so much speculation. You know, we've seen this video speeded up. We've seen it from different angles. We've had speculations on that. We're hearing that it was a cyber attack. We're hearing it was, oh no, it was controlled demolition. We're hearing it was an accident, but it's because of DEI. All of these things, it's enough to make your head spin for sure. But the point is there's still a lot that we don't know and that perhaps we're not going to know for a long time. So Yahoo News had this story that came out that said the National Transportation Safety Board is leading an investigation into the accident and that it could take between 1 to 2 years. So might be a long time before we know something. And even then, we're going to obviously question whatever they tell us because they don't have a good track record of telling us the truth about any of these mass events, right? But it's crazy to me that in my daily devotion this morning, this verse popped up from Proverbs 19:2. It is not good to have zeal without knowledge, nor to be hasty and miss the way. I think that this speaks to the situation so profoundly because there's plenty of people that are having a lot of zeal about speculating about the story without the knowledge or being too hasty. Now, whether or not we have a definitive reason for why this happened, we can't ever let a good crisis go to waste, right? So the event is already being used for manipulation. You can take a look at this Yahoo News article, and there's a whole section in there about how there's no credible evidence that this was anything other than an accident. And we've heard no evidence, overused quite a bit, right? We've heard no evidence that Biden intentionally kept classified docs. We've heard no evidence he profited from access with bribes and his family members' foreign dealings. We've heard no evidence the 2020 election was rigged. So that's the first red flag that they want to rush that out before there is an investigation or we really know much is clearly we're going to rule this out right away. And then there's the next heading of this article that says missing construction workers were foreign nationals. So it's interesting that the victims and that they're using this crisis to shame those that are talking about the illegals that are coming across the border in mass. 2 were listed as missing as Mexican citizens. So were they here illegally or no? Of course, that's not really addressed in the article. The Mexican president is quoted as saying they do not deserve to be treated as some irresponsible and insensitive politicians in the United States tend to treat them. So again, we're already taking a bridge collapse and we're manipulating it to try and shame people that have an issue with illegals coming over the border en masse. Yes, it's tragic when anyone dies, but because that is the case, they're emotionally manipulating the situation. And then, of course, MSM got their memo. They react to the reaction, not actually what happened. USA Today says Baltimore Bridge collapse was tragic enough. Then came the right-wing conspiracy theorists. And it said what existed online regarding Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse, stuff beamed into the brains of millions, bore no resemblance to actual facts and news, as if they know the actual facts and news before the rest of us. Because again, we're all peons and they're the elite. It talks about how right-wingers can use this event, but just wait and see, how Biden's disastrous economy will be blamed on this supply chain breakdown that's going to happen as a result from this. Washington Post said the day after bridge collapse, Republicans are blaming Democrats, floating unfounded and sometimes racist theories. Republicans previously criticized Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg about not visiting East Palestine, and now they're going to criticize him about this, it goes on to say. So again, they're the ones that are using this to talk about the reaction, not what actually happened. And then, of course, Rolling Stone, right-wingers are already pushing conspiracy theories about Baltimore bridge collapse. The city's mayor called the incident an unthinkable tragedy. Conservatives see it as a chance to bash Biden and float baseless conspiracies. They love that phrase. And so Rolling Stone is the one that has peddled their own conspiracies. They've peddled the PP hoax. They've peddled that people taking ivermectin were backing up hospitals. Remember that story? That was Rolling Stone that made that fake story go all over the place. Now, there might have been some overenthusiasm, though, to claim conspiracy. You can take a look at Lara Logan's tweet. She came quickly out to say that from multiple intel sources that it was an absolutely brilliant strategic attack. She's saying that this was most definitely cyber. And I really respect and admire Lara Logan. But again, I would caution to wait a little bit. Some of the things that she's saying and some of the things that even Bannon said about that they didn't drop anchor. You can see in the video that they did drop anchor, that they did lose power. So we don't necessarily have to take an extreme stance. We should definitely always be skeptical because there's obvious motivations that some of this would be good. They can use this crisis, but it's not. Some of the facts aren't lining up with that absolute determination. Now, for some comic relief, here's what Biden had to say. He's a little bit confused on this as much as everything else.
At about 1:30, container ship struck the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which I've been over many, many times commuting from the state of Delaware, either on a train or by car.
Yes, he said he took the Francis Scott Key Bridge by train. Oh, but you're not to question his mental capacity. Karine Jean-Pierre was recently on a radio interview, and someone dared to ask her this. Listen to how she reacts.
When I told a number of people that I was talking to you today, it was interesting, though. They all said, would you please just ask her, does the president have dementia? And so before I move on from that, does he?
Mark, I can't even believe you're asking me this question. That is an incredibly offensive question to ask.
But people ask it.
Wait, let me.
Now, she goes on to continue to say how insulting it is, doesn't really actually answer the question, and then she hangs up on him. But yet, Newsweek has this headline that Donald Trump dementia evidence is overwhelming, says top psychiatrist. So this is more of, well, experts say basically whatever we want them to say. It's always they point to a top psychiatrist or a random doctor or a random expert, the most vague, and make them be the parrot of whatever their directive was to put out there. This is projection at its finest. You talk to anyone, even supporters of Biden, and they can admit that something's not all there. But now we're going to try and put that on Trump? Are you kidding me? Now to the main topic. There is a war on for our children, and it's not even veiled. It's in plain sight. Remember this story from the New York Post and others carried the story about a gay couple that were charged with molesting their adopted sons. They also pimped them out to a pedophile ring, according to the report. It was just awful. I mean, I read the whole thing, but I could barely stomach it, sharing some of the texts. I mean, it showed the pictures of this gay couple going to Disney and just looking like, oh, they're just a happy, normal couple. And to know what was going behind the scenes, how these poor boys were being abused, it's incomprehensible. But somehow, if that wasn't bad enough, it's getting even worse. What if that is all the children ever know? Because they weren't just adopted into it, but they were actually created for it. That is what this next story is about. And it's time that we start having this discussion about homosexual surrogacy. From CBS News Chicago, they report that Adam King, he was this dog show host, well-known veterinarian, and he was arrested by the FBI for planning to molest and pimp out his incoming surrogate child. According to the police, he was planning to purchase a newborn child via surrogacy. There's pictures of him posting onesies, sleepers. It's disgusting. He was posting in online chat rooms about his plans to abuse and rape the newborn. He said that he preferred kids allegedly in the single digits. He also claimed to have abused his own nieces and nephews after drugging them with a double and adult dose of Benadryl. This man claimed that he was about to receive another baby in a month via surrogacy. So again, this is something that we have to talk about. It's an uncomfortable conversation, but since the legalization of gay marriage, the goalposts continue to move. First it was marriage, then it was turned into bake this cake, or we're going to sue, forcing churches, Christian nonprofits to give in to marriage demands. And I'm here in Texas where there's been stories about drag queen story hours, and you do end up finding out that, yes, they were known sex offenders. And now here we are, homosexual surrogacy via baby harvesting. This is a situation where there's no vetting, no monitoring of this practice. Any child molester can use surrogacy, if they have enough money, as a means to purchase a child. And then where's the follow-up going to be? Because they've purchased their child via surrogacy. Where's the checkups going to happen? The horrors we see on the news are just the ones who've gotten caught. Think about how much this is happening that is never revealed. And so we have a responsibility as Christians to not remain silent on this issue out of fear of offending. Babies are getting hurt. They are the innocent. We know God's passionate about the protection of children and innocence, and it's time for Christians to start asking the hard questions. We're going to talk more on this subject with Landon Starbuck when she joins us. But just want to hit some economics news real quick. Also, I used to be a stockbroker, so I know a little bit about finances. And what we're seeing now in the market, top investors are cashing out. There's now news that there's evidence of Canada and Germany facing recession. All this to say that gold is doing well, as people like me have been saying it would. It's up to $2,600 an ounce. So people who purchased gold last year are extremely happy. Now is the time to not wait any longer to purchase gold and miss out as this continues to thrive in value. So get in the game with the company I trust. Watch this. Get free with Kristi Leigh, and that includes getting free from tying up all your money in the banks we can no longer trust.
Greed works.
The market, which can face manipulation, and getting ahead of any central bank digital currency schemes that might be headed our way. In times of uncertainty, the wisdom of diversifying with gold and silver shines brighter than ever. Genesis Gold Group offers a path to invest in these precious metals, echoing the biblical principles of wisdom and preparation. So go to getklgold.com to get your free gold and silver guide and get started. That's getklgold.com. Also want to let you know about a brand new deal that just went live with MyPillow. All of you know that Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of the box stores or shopping channels the way they used to. So they've been a victim of this cancel culture, and they want to pass the savings, though, directly onto you. They were having a $25 extravaganza, and with the dedicated employees, they have so many products that you may not even know about. So to get the word out, they're having $25 extravaganza. Like I said, 2-pack multi-use MyPillow is just $25, sandals $25, 6-pack towel sets $25, so much, $25. You got to check it out. Even the Giza sheets in king size, $25. It's not going to last long. So go to mypillow.com/KL or call 1-800-663-3706. Use promo code KL. And when you do, you will get free shipping on your entire order today. You just need to hit the minimum benchmark of $75. So stack up. You get 3 things for $25 each. You'll hit the benchmark and get your shipping for free as well. All right, I've been teasing it throughout the show. We have our very special guest with us, Landon Starbuck. Want to introduce her before we bring her on. Landon is a national speaker, writer, musician, warrior for children. Don't know how she does it all. Her advocacy work is featured on all kinds of outlets: Fox News, Breitbart, Federalist, Daily Wire, and more. She is the founder of Freedom Forever, a nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting children from abuse, trafficking, and exploitation. Landon has been one of the leading voices combating child mutilation and the harms of radical gender ideology. She's passionate about that work, but also wife to husband Robbie and mother to her 3 miracle children. And this
documentary we're going to discuss exposes the ongoing battle for the control of the next generation and their minds. It reveals the battle plan being used to control the future. The War on Children is this documentary, and to win this war, you have to understand the tactics of your enemy. The War on Children exposes the agenda that sexualizes children, smears their identities, and promotes transgender mutilation. So we're going to watch a portion of this trailer before we bring her in. Let's take a look.
Sexualizing our children and stealing their innocence.
I think that's right.
TikTok specifically is designed to target young people. That's who their audience is.
Have children died because of social media?
Absolutely.
Have they been trafficked off of social media?
100%.
Have they been sexually exploited off of social media?
Ongoing. Yes.
I'm scrolling on TikTok. I see little kids with TikTok. What are they looking at?
This is what you don't want kids to see, is that correct?
Exactly.
And again, this is depicting children. This is supposed to be kids.
Well, honestly, I didn't even know that.
Now, you can go to thewaronchildren.com to see that whole trailer for this remarkable movie. It's interesting because that book they showed is the very book that I was raising attention to in my former school district. It's crazy that the school members were trying to defend. And then, of course, when you bring in the big posters of this book, it's like they don't want to see it, but this is what they want to give to children. It's absolutely alarming. It's such an important topic. There's so much going on in the news cycle that distracts us from what's truly important, which is this war on our children and protecting their innocence. So please welcome Landon Starbuck. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Kristi.
You bet. This is so exciting that this is a labor of love that you can do with your husband and are both passionate and can do that together. That was like my first impression. It's like, oh, that's so cool that they can do this together and that they can bring this important topic to people together. But as you would expect, you know, I've seen other videos of where your husband is particularly attacked. That was highly entertaining. His run-in with AI saying that he should be killed off. My gosh, people will have to check that out another time, kind of off topic, but my goodness, you've had all kinds of attacks. And one of those is from a great outlet I was talking about earlier, Rolling Stone, who is attacking the right wing for questioning the bridge collapse. Now they're accusing you of tricking people to do the documentary because you had some people that were in that movement, the LGBTQ movement that were featured in the film.
Apparently so. I mean, it's interesting that the Rolling Stone apparently watched the film and didn't have any critique of the actual film or the facts because it was unassailable. Every part of that was factual. So they didn't choose to attack the film. They choose to get into ticky-tacky interview request methods, which, you know, are industry standard. Nobody who is going to be in a documentary is going to have access to all information for the documentary, especially since documentaries tend to be evolving in titles and directors and all that. And that was the same case for this project. So it's interesting that they just wanted to paint a narrative that we're trying to trick people. You know, it's interesting. We want to hear their perspective, and we still do. It's these people that want to play victim and cower away from the truth that they are actively participating in this war on children. We were completely respectful, and all of the interviews and, you know, long form that we will probably release in full context later on show that respect, you know, for even people we disagree with. But I think if people watch the film, they would definitely see that this was definitely a well-done film and basic questions that any people would ask given the situation. So it's just interesting that Rolling Stone would take that perspective. I actually expected them to go a lot harder and try to discredit the film in one way. So I was shocked. So maybe it was lazy journalism. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting and fascinating to me that a publication that has so often been discredited itself is still in the business of trying to discredit others. I mean, there's been lie after lie, as I talked about earlier. I don't need to go through that again. But speaking of lies, the opposition says this is hysteria. We're not actually transitioning or chemically castrating children. But you actually feature a little girl in this film that had this experience. You want to tell me about that?
Sure. I mean, they just continually lie, the media, and that's why the left-wing media is just barely hanging on by a thread and have lost credibility. What's what once were these, recognizable institutions are just really losing credibility with average people because they're sick of being lied to. And we were told that these surgeries weren't happening to children. But there's countless stories like Layla Jane, who's in our documentary, who was transitioned, had a double mastectomy at the age of 13 years old, a month after she turned 13. So the fact that this is happening on our youth, and that insurance companies are paying for it, and that hospitals are endorsing this mutilation of children is just astonishing. And I think that this film is waking people up, because until you actually hear the stories and you see these broken, young adults from the childhood trauma they're experiencing as a result of gender ideology, it doesn't truly resonate. The magnitude of where we're headed, of a generation of maimed children.
They so constantly dismiss these stories. I mean, not only about this particular subject when it pertains to children, but the very real problem that we have in child sex trafficking. The Atlantic had done a piece about the fake news of child sex trafficking when it's clearly not fake. It's so dismissive. Do you think that the end goal about targeting children is rooted in things like what we know of the Marxism ideal of reaching the kids and breaking the family apart? Or do you think it is just satanic, demonic, been going on because of that end? Or is there just the less sinister way of looking at it, which is still very sinister, but like you said, just the cash cow that it's come? They found another way to bleed people for money when it comes to this particular section of medical necessity is what I'll say. What do you think it is? Do you think it's all of the above?
I totally agree. I think it's all of the above. Ultimately, I believe this is a spiritual war. I don't believe that our human souls naturally would gravitate towards maiming and mutilating our own children, born in the correct body, nothing being wrong with them, and do this to them and sexualize them and steal their childhood innocence. I think it takes a degree of evil to participate that in any facet. But I think there's a lot of nefarious interests that benefit financially, power grabs, and also fundamentally changing the fabric of America, or even ultimately destroying it through these Marxist ideals of fragmenting the nuclear family or separating families apart, the parent-child bond. Those things have to happen in all of history, all the revolutions. You have to separate parents and children and undermine that power dynamic so that the state can step in and be that solution, so that these nefarious interests can benefit.
What do you think is making them so brazen and bold about it? Because, here you have this group of people that paint themselves as victims, yet time and time again, we see them in positions of bullying. I mean, look what they did to Riley Gaines. What is making them so emboldened to make this the hill to die on and continue to target children?
Well, on one hand, they are emboldened. They're well-financed, integrated. These different agendas work synergistically. The medical industry and the school counselors associations and Planned Parenthood in the schools to orchestrate these evil agendas. But it's also our weakness, because in order to have evil win, you have to have good men and women doing nothing or not doing enough. And I think it's our, culture of tolerance, of tolerating bad ideas, bad people, and really horrific acts, especially on our most vulnerable, being children, for so long, that we've negated our responsibility as parents, as members of our community, allowing this to take place, allowing kids to be sexualized, allowing pornographic books to sneak into our schools and curriculums. And we've just said, well, it's not my problem. Live and let live. You do you, boo. All of that culture of tolerance is really a tolerance of evil. And that is why it's advanced. And that's why they don't care. There's these big corporations like Target, they don't care if you don't shop and give them your money, because they know most people will continue giving them their money. They know most people are struggling right now, and they're capitalizing, ironically, on the vulnerabilities of the American public and this, psychological operation that's been enacted on American families.
We continue to be upset and just horrified. I mean, I talked about earlier how some of these articles I don't even want to read because it's just too much for me to bear as a parent. But I think it's so important to bring things back to solutions. What are some small steps, things that we can do as parents to start protecting our own children, start there, from this weaponized agenda?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that, because that's why I started my nonprofit combating child exploitation called Freedom Forever. You can go to freedomforever.us, and there's a free parenting revolution manual. We wrote this manual because we wanted actual solutions and answers to equip parents and anyone who has children or cares about children to protect them. We all should be invested in children. And it provides resources, tools, and actual, actions that we need to take to protect this next generation. So we wanted to make that available for free for anyone who subscribes to our nonprofit.
So, so much of this was unheard of. 20 years ago, even just 10 years ago, hearing this stuff would be unheard of and shocking, but they've been able to bring it in so quickly. Why do you think it's so hard in waking people up to, how is this even an issue? Don't you think it's strange that all of a sudden there's so many youth that are confused about what gender they're, why is it, on the one hand, so hard to wake people up, and why are they moving so fast?
Well, I think it goes to the psychological effects of everything that's happened. Even through COVID, the mass gaslighting, the ability to take facts and say a man is a woman and a woman is a man. If they can convince anyone to believe that and actually force them to, and say, if you don't abide by this, you're being hateful and you can be fired from your job or be kicked out of school or kicked off the swim team. That's where we're at right now. If they got us to that point, they can make us believe anything. And the problem is that this mentality has attached to our identities, and parents have lost sight that we need a parenting revolution. We've forgotten our identity as parents to first and foremost protect our children, and we get to say what school our child goes to, what environments, what cell phones they have access to. We have so much power that we're not fully using because we have been convinced and groomed ourselves to abdicate that role to the state, to the school, to the counselors, to the experts in the white coats. And we've forgotten our power and our innate intuition to protect and guide our children the way that we're supposed to, and the way that only parents know how to do for their own child. And so when we reestablish that strong sense of identity in our faith, I think that that's going to have a profound impact on the way we navigate all of these hurdles, because we cannot continue going through life just saying, don't shop here, boycott this, don't do this. We have to have a vision of prosperity, of hope, and that starts with our families. That starts with who we are as parents and where we are leading this next generation.
Absolutely. You mentioned about, when, and anytime you're creating something, anytime you have something that you're passionate about, that it can evolve as you're working on it. We're just starting this new show, and I talked about how I'm sure it will evolve, and hopefully in a good way. But the War on Children documentary, what surprised you in going through that process? Do you feel like it wasn't exactly what you had envisioned by the time it was done, or did you learn something significant along the way while working on this?
What surprised me the most was the spiritual warfare that came with it. The amount of, attacks and hurdles and holdups and cancellations and financial things and just bizarre things that have never happened in any other hard thing that I've ever done. And the frequency of it, it really made me go, wow, this is very real. Like a spiritual, war is at play here. There's a lot of entities that do not want this film out for various reasons, right? I can think of a list of 100 enemies that wouldn't want this film to be seen, because it really breaks through the narrative of this agenda, and it triggers something in people to make them want to think critically and ask questions. And once you start asking questions, that's when you get to the truth. And so that's what we, set out to do with this film. And it's been downloaded over 50 million times. And we have not spent $1 in ad revenue, because we're actually canceled from ads. We're not even allowed to take out ads on our film. But that just shows you the power of the people. They're watching this film, they're sharing it organically, and it is making a tremendous impact.
Now, you've also done work exposing human trafficking caused, of course, by this invasion happening at our southern border. And I mentioned that earlier about the Atlantic tries to dismiss that. Do you think that this war on children with the transgender deception and all of that is somehow related to to them being treated as sex objects and the trafficking concerns that we have?
Sure. That's a loaded question because yes, the border issues are very real. I organized the largest coalition 3 years ago at the border to draw awareness because news outlets like The Atlantic were calling this conspiracy theory or QAnon stuff. This is really happening and real lives are being impacted. And the Biden administration has lost track of a third of these children who are going to unvetted sponsors and are just going missing and nobody's looking for them. So, there's that side of it, but there's also a deep correlation between the push for transgenderism in children and sexualization of children. They intersect, and that's also why you find so many, trans-identifying people involved in really fringe, high-risk sexual behaviors and weird kinks and things of that nature, or in some cases, getting caught, with CSAM, with child sexual abuse material, aka child pornography. So the problem is that when you have no moral lines and you tell a child that they can live a lie and be something that they are not, there's also that extends to the morality of sexuality. And if they believe that, which these progressives do believe, that children are sexual from birth, they believe there's no parameters there and that they're entitled to express themselves sexually as well. So when you understand the intersection of those two ideologies, you can't separate the sexualization of children and the transgender agenda of children.
Absolutely. So where can people watch your film and support you being able to continue to do this kind of work?
They can go to thewaronchildren.com, find all the ways to watch the film there. You can gift it to people that you think might be scared to watch the film. That helps them get over that hump. And also you can go to freedomforever.us, that's my nonprofit, and get your free download of the Parenting Revolution Manual.
Awesome. Well, we want to get you on your way because I know you're busy doing all of this very important work. So thank you so much for coming on with me today. I really appreciate it, Landon.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Sexualizing our children and stealing their innocence.
I think that's right.
TikTok specifically is designed to target young people. That's who their audience is.
Have children died because of social media?
Absolutely.
Have they been trafficked off of social media?
100%.
Have they been sexually exploited off of social media?
Ongoing. Yes.
I'm scrolling on TikTok. I see little kids with TikTok. What are they looking at?
This is what you don't want kids to see, is that correct?
Exactly.
And again, this is depicting children. This is supposed to be kids.
Well, honestly, I didn't even know that transition from female to male was an option until I was on social media and began being exposed to those type of communities.
You've never seen an 18-month-old masturbating?
No, I haven't. Have you seen any sexually explicit drag shows marketed as all ages for kids that you would denounce or think that are a problem and that you want to distance yourself from?
No.
You know this is wrong.
So, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to end the interview.
They use the word sexualize kids at a young age, or, give me a break.
It just seems like there's no moral, construct at all.
Are kids facing just the absolute worst onslaught of grooming that we've ever seen?
Yes, the entertainment industry is sexualizing children for an agenda.
Your daughter was secretly transitioned at school.
This policy has to do with children as young as 5 all the way through high school.
Penthouse footed the bill to lobby before state boards of education. Yes, Penthouse and Playboy. The history behind this is far darker than most Americans understand.
Do you think the big tech companies at this point are essentially aiding and abetting human traffickers and people who are working to exploit children?
Absolutely.
If you don't want to hear it in a school board meeting, why should children be able to check it out of the school system?
There is misinformation presented that somehow that we're doing surgery on minors or even children, and that simply is not true.
How old were you when they gave you a double mastectomy?
It was a month after my 13th birthday.
Ultimately, we're going to talk about, are they going to give, the counselor's going to give them medication there at school without their parents' permission? I mean, I think we're leading towards an absurd and horrific time.
Well, first of all, we weren't forewarned we would be sharing a locker room. We had no idea. I turned around, a 6'4", 22-year-old man, fully intact with an exposing male genitalia.
This ideology is killing our kids.
Do you think more people need to speak up to protect kids like your daughter?
Yes, I do.
Well, I think from heaven she can see how hard you fought for her.
Do you feel like this is a war on children?
I know it's a war on children, but like they said, we're coming for your kids.
Yeah.
And they have.
Can I ask the cameras to get turned off for just a second? I just want to have a real conversation.
All right, we packed in a lot on today's show. I hope you'll join me in future shows. We're going to start with Tuesday and Thursday. You're going to grow with us. You're going to see how we grow and improve and how you can be a part of this show. It's going to be exciting stuff. I tend to like to finish the shows on a good note, and what better way than to share some scripture. And this is a fundamental one from Romans 10:17. So then faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. I have committed to making sure that no matter what, I'm in the word at least a little bit each day. If you want to join me, I have on my locals channel a daily devotional that I just started. You can go to kristileighTV.locals.com and join me for a daily devotional. That's 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. Time may be subject to change, but that's what we're doing so far to start out with. And please send me your favorite Bible verses. Send me your good news tips. Again, that email to send it to is klgoodnews@gmail.com. klgetgoodnews@gmail.com. klgetgoodnews@gmail.com. Thanks again for watching, and don't forget to spread the word and share with friends, and get free with Kristi Leigh now on frankspeech.com. Let them eat bugs, they say, or lab-grown meat, or worse. No, we want our real beef. And we need to get free from the rising costs because the prices are skyrocketing. So you need to go to klbeef.com, stock up on all American beef from ranches in Texas, from Prepper All Naturals. We don't want the mystery meat. This meat is no mRNA jabs ever. It's freeze-dried, stored in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers for maximum shelf life. We're talking 10 plus years without refrigeration. We're not talking jerky. We're talking about something you can just soak in water for 15 minutes, ready to eat. And these are premium cuts: New York strip, tenderloin, sirloin, chuck. Just use promo code KLB15 for 15% off your order.
Mike Lindell here, and like you, I see our country being destroyed daily. We face massive economic issues, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, there are people in power who threaten the values that have made our country great. Well, I've been a believer in gold and silver for a long time, and I've searched for years for a partner that shares my values. Well, Genesis Gold Group showed me how easy it is to protect your IRA, 401k, or your retirement with gold and silver. Their faith-driven approach to service and stewardship is one that stands out from the rest. So call Genesis Gold Group now at 1-800-200-GOLD. That's 1-800-200-4653, or go to LindellGoldRush.com now.
FrankSpeech.com was launched during the height of mass media censorship. to give voices back to those who had their voices silenced. This April, Lindell TV celebrates 3 years of uncensored truth about America's stolen elections, the voting machines, and the fight to return to paper ballots. Today, we stand at the precipice of a new era, covering the most important presidential election in American history. An era defined by the battle for some of our most fundamental rights: freedom of speech, freedom of press, and secure elections. We at Frank Speech refuse to be silenced. We refuse to bow down to the forces that seek to dictate what we can and cannot say. We are the media now. Join us in this fight at frankspeech.com.
You might not want to hear what we're saying, but we're going to say it.
Hi, I'm Joe, Supreme Leader of DCF. What is DCF, you ask? We're the best damn sandwich shop in the universe. Do we sell hoagies? Well, we're DCF, and the F doesn't stand for hoagies. We got 9mm sandwiches, we got beastly baguettes, and we toast buns like no other. Looking for training on bun safety? We got you covered, and our ranges are the best place to test out your new Not sandwich. So get your buns out, cause the sun's out, and let's party! We're not actually a sandwich shop.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Rose, CEO of Genesis Gold Group. Can your retirement savings like an IRA or 401k stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our very doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. With a multi-trillion-dollar trade deficit and geopolitical instability, experts say now is the time to make the switch. Protect your retirement today with one simple phone call and receive your free gold and silver guide.
Call Genesis Gold Group today at 1-800-200-GOLD and find out how you can add precious metals to your IRA. That's 1-800-200-GOLD or 1-800-200-4653. Or visit genesisgoldgroup.com. Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship.
Mike Lindell here, and like you, I see our country being destroyed daily. We face massive economic issues, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, there are people in power who threaten the values that have made our country great. Well, I've been a believer in gold and silver for a long time, and I've searched for years for a partner that shares my values. Well, Genesis Gold Group showed me how easy it is to protect your IRA, 401k, or your retirement with gold and silver. Their faith-driven approach to service and stewardship is one that stands out from the rest. So call Genesis Gold Group now at 1-800-200-GOLD. That's 1-800-200-4653, or go to LindellGoldRush.com now.
"3 years ago, frankspeech.com was launched during the height of mass media censorship to give voices back to those who had their voices silenced. This April, Lindell TV celebrates 3 years of uncensored truth about America's stolen elections, the voting machines, and the fight to return to paper ballots. Today, we stand at the precipice of a new era, covering the most important presidential election in American history. An era defined by the battle for some of our most fundamental rights: freedom of speech, freedom of press, and secure elections. We at Frank Speech refuse to be silenced. We refuse to bow down to the forces that seek to dictate what we can and cannot say. We are the media now. Join us in this fight at frankspeech.com.
You might not want to hear what we're saying, but we're going to say it.